Well, hello, and welcome to the Pixologic stream. Sorry for the 1 hour delay, but couldn't be helped. But we'll just go until 10 instead of going till 9. Hopefully that's not going to inconvenience a lot of you. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. Just before I do that, real quick, just you know what to do. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. And if you have any questions, you can, of course, ask while I'm doing the stream. Or if you have questions after the fact, you can always leave them in the comments. And somebody from Pixologic or me will answer them for you. All right, so we are going to do kind of a similar thing to what we did last time, but we're going to do it with a female character. And hopefully we can take it further. So here also there's some new things that techniques that I've kind of discovered. So I'll be doing those as well, which will make this a little bit more fun. So again, if you have any questions or if you have anything you want to mention, please do it in the chat window. And before I get going, I just want to make sure everything is working so you guys can see the video okay and you can hear me okay and the chat's working. So if you guys can just chime in from each one of the three services of Twitch and YouTube and also Facebook. If you could guys let me know that you can see me and hear me okay, we can get going. Hey, Mr. Sampson, how's it going? Just doing the stream. A lot of fun stuff happening. Looking forward to the ZBrush Summit this month. And also, I want to mention that I wasn't on my regular time last Friday. I'm shifting over by a week. So I'll be doing 3 streams in October. So I'll be doing the first. You can actually, let me just bring this up. You can see it in the schedule. So if you go to ZBrush Live and go to the calendar, you will see here that I am in October. Let me see if I can just go to the calendar. So I'm on today. I'm on the 15th as well. And this week right here, the 22nd will be the ZBrush Summit, and then I'm on right after the ZBrush Summit as well, right? So I'm going to be on 3 times this month. So just kind of keep that in mind if you guys want to see these live. And also, there's plenty of other presenters as well, so I highly recommend you view these. Also, the videos that you have seen, or the streams that I've done before are all available. So here, if you go to presenters on Pixologic ZBrush Live, so if you just have ZBrush Live in Google, you'll find it. And if you scroll down to where I am, which is right over here, if you click on my picture here or just my name, you can scroll down, and here are all the other streams that I've done. So I've done 4 seasons. This is the 5th one. I did 1 episode last week, and so this is the 2nd episode of the 5th season. So all right, let's see. All right, so Mr. Sampson, yeah, great. I'm glad you did, and you'll be seeing some more stuff along those lines again today, and so hopefully you'll enjoy it. Okay, so first of all, let's go ahead and get started. Let's see. I'm still not getting anybody letting me know that everything is good. You can hear me okay, and you can see things okay. So, Mr. Sampson, if you can hear this, let me know. Okay, so the Twitch is good. Thank you, Jack. And let's see. I just need somebody to chime in from, okay, so Mr. Sampson is good too. YouTube is good. And let's see, I guess Facebook is the last one. There's a little bit of a delay on Facebook, so I guess if these two are working, I'm going to assume that Facebook is working too. But if somebody from Facebook does hear this, please chime in and let me know that you can see me and hear me okay. All right, so here I've got a female character, same kind of deal as last time where I've done some polygrouping on this character, and I've polygrouped the fingers, and the polygrouping logic that I've done here is basically to break this down by different costume elements. So for example, if I want to do like a tank top, I can just do the tank top, and if I want to do like a t-shirt, I can just click here and click on the arms. Oops, did that again. And so now I can just do a t-shirt, or I can do any kind of clothing elements, but this time we're going to do a full costume. So to start out, what I'm going to do first is mask the head and the hands, because I don't want those to be affected. So I'm just going to click on this polygroup here and just keep clicking on the different polygroups that I want to. I'm just going to reverse it later, so I'm just going to click on, come on. It seems like I have to do this almost twice on everyone. I don't know why. Here we go. I just need to be on a point here. There we go. I'm just going to do this. So these are the two parts I'm going to mask and then bring everything back. So everything that I'm going to do is not going to happen on the person's face or hands, because I'll do those separately. I do have a helmet for her as well. I might do that later, but for now we're just going to stick to this. Okay, and then the next thing I'm going to do is go up in subdivision levels. So this model has 6 subdivision levels. We'll go all the way up to, 5. We'll go up in subdivision levels, and there it is. Something that you'll notice here is I've tried here to expose some of the anatomical elements, the bony kind of protruding parts here, the iliac crest, the elbow, etc. So I can know where those are. And also notice here that I've kind of created this to look more like a shirt instead of 2 kind of separate breasts, just because it is going to be a costume, and most costumes usually end up being of this form and not separated out, unless it's a low cut thing, which if it is, then I can adjust it for that. Okay, let's see. All right, full screen mode on, good vibes. Okay, good. Mr. Sampson is doing things well. And everything is good on Facebook too. Jacob, thank you very much. So I guess we're good to go. Let me grab some tea here and we can get started. All right, so the 2 different things I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you how I'm going to use layers, which will help quite a bit with the composition. And the other thing is I've created these 2 planes. So I've created, and I'll go ahead and turn them on. And let me choose a lighter color here. So I've created a plane that is this one right here. And let me put this behind her a little bit. So this is just a plane that is kind of, it's perpendicular to the z-axis. And I've got another plane over here, which is perpendicular to the x-axis. And the reason why I have these, I'll show you in a minute as to why these make sense. Right, so you want to make sure that you are on the model itself here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and store this position. So I just hit Control and clicked on here because I want to store this. And the other thing I also want to do is store a morph target. So let me do that as well. Here I'm just going to delete the morph target that was there and store a new one. So I've got a morph target in this kind of state that this person is in. So now that I've done those 2 things, I'm going to do the same thing I did last time. I'm going to be on the paintbrush, on the stroke here. And let's go ahead, and I've got a bunch of other pictures loaded in here. So let's go ahead and choose maybe this helmet right here. Now the thing that's good about this plane is that before I had to actually start on the model itself like this to draw things out. But if I have a plane, what I can do is I can actually click on the plane, and let me turn symmetry on too here, look better that way. So let me activate X symmetry. So I can click anywhere on the plane and start dragging out. And as you can see, the image will come in. So I don't have to start anywhere on the model. I can actually start anywhere on the plane. So I'm just going to kind of frame this as much as I can. And then we're going to start working. So before I do that too, one more thing I want to do here. Let me just go back all the way to where I was here, where I set an undo state. The other thing I also want to do here is go in and turn a layer on. And layers, last time I didn't use them, but I've come to learn that they're going to be pretty helpful in what I'm doing. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. So I just created a new layer. It's in record mode. It goes into record mode right away. And then here I'll just go ahead and start drawing out this helmet on this model and see what kind of interesting shapes I get. All right, so this is an Oakley helmet, so the Oakley text is coming in. Of course, I can resize this so it doesn't come in, and we'll see here if I'm getting anything interesting out of this one helmet. And if I like it, I'll keep it. And if I don't, I'll just, I'll just paint over it. So this one isn't really giving me too many interesting shapes. Let's try this one. So these are just some Oakley helmets that I've kind of grabbed pictures of. And automatically I'm seeing that this is generating something interesting. And it's created a neat logo over here. So I'm going to go ahead and keep that. Again, I don't really care about the O over here, the Oakley logo. I can get rid of that. But I'm just going to go ahead and start drawing some stuff out and see if I can get an interesting shape out of these. And it's pretty amazing like how quickly you get some interesting things going on. So these things look really good on the shoulders. They look good on the knees. They could be elements. So I'll just kind of continue to do the same process to get some interesting kind of shapes. So let's see, do I have back face mask on? I do. I can also maybe turn transparency off so I can see the back this way as well. Let me see, is ghost mode going to be any better? Yep, it is. Okay, so I can see pretty well what's going on in the front and the back. Let me continue to work on this and see if I can get some interesting designs. Okay, I'm done with this helmet. Let's go to something else. Let's go to maybe this motorcycle right here. And again, these are just images that I've captured from a while back. So they're just random images. At the end of the day, none of the kind of the image specifics are going to show up. They're just going to be mixed together with different things. Let's see if this shape does anything interesting. So here you see I'm kind of overriding what's there, which is fine. But I like this shoulder area, so I'm going to mask it. So I keep it. I'm not really I'm not really married to the kind of the logo that I have, so I'm not going to care that much about that. But let's see what kind of variations this gives us. It's always good to try and do these from different angles too. I kind of like what's going on with this shape, so I'm going to try and see if I can do more with that. And in this case here, I can always go in and hide that plane so I don't see the back of it, and try and see what this does. Okay, I kind of like what's going on in here. It almost looks like I have inside of here some different shapes. So I'm just going to continue to do this. I haven't really found anything that I am very committed to except this kind of the shoulder area. I really like what's going on there. And then I'm just experimenting and playing around with different ideas. Okay, so that's all good. Yeah, I kind of like what's going on with these type of patterns here, so I'll leave those. And now I kind of like this. I kind of want to keep this exact same setting. So what I'm going to do here is go to my layers menu and turn record off. So now I have this as a layer. I can turn it on and off, right? So this is what it was like before, and I can turn this on like so. But what I did when I did this is I removed the masking that I had on the hands and the head. So unfortunately, I have to do that all over again, and that's better done in the lowest subdivision level. So let me do that, and let me see if I can do this a little bit faster. Turn on polyframe, and like so. I might figure out some way to automate this process in the future. But for now, I mean, it just takes a few minutes to do it, so it's not that big of a deal. And here I can just, do this, which is Control Shift and Alt afterwards, and then mask this, bring everything back, go back up to the highest subdivision level, and turn off polyframe, and we're good to go. All right, so this is all on one layer. I can turn it on and off. Now what I'm going to do is go in and create another layer, right? So now I've got another layer, and now I'm working on this layer. And so whatever is there is going to stay on layer one. So these are just like Photoshop layers. If you haven't used layers, they're pretty useful. And here I'm going to look for some other shape that looks interesting. Let's try, this helmet looks okay. Let's try this gray helmet. Let's see what that does. So again, just kind of place the model. Let me bring the plane back as well. And let's continue to do the same thing. And by the way, if you guys have questions or comments or want to talk, you're welcome to do so while I'm working. I will stop every once in a while and check the chat to see if there's anything that you guys are confused about, or if you want me to cover anything in a different way. So what's nice about starting outside is you can do this. And here, notice that the straps of the helmet are creating something interesting. And I'm getting something interesting here too. So that looks pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and keep these. And let's continue to see what kind of patterns and designs this gives us over here. Okay, good. Rodrigo, awesome. Good to hear that. If you have any questions or if something isn't clear, please don't hesitate to ask. It kind of helps the stream continue in a good way, and also makes it more interactive, which makes it more fun. And if you guys don't ask questions, then I'll start asking questions. So, all right, let's go ahead and pick this design here and see what kind of look we're going to get. And what's really cool here is I can just leave this and like have this be some sort of a bodysuit, and it works really well. But I'm going to go ahead and turn it into geometry in a little bit. Let's see what this does. This is a kind of a neat pattern. And let's see if I can get something cool going on with this one. Like so. So I like the kind of this crisscross pattern. It's creating some interesting looks. And the red is looking good too. So I'll just continue to do this same process over and over again until I get something that looks interesting enough. That looks interesting right there. And let's see if I can replicate that same thing down here. Right, so it looks like it's going to overwrite it. So I'll just mask this area and continue to do this until I get something similar. All right, let's see. That looks pretty cool. And again, it's kind of not a good idea to stick to one thing here and just kind of be married to it. So now what I'm going to do is just go ahead and accept this, right? And I'm going to add yet another layer. So I've got 2 layers now, and I can choose elements from each one of the layers. And I'm going to go ahead, try and fill out all these layers and go ahead and see what I like in each one of them, and keep and erase components based on things that I find interesting. So here I'm using a kind of a graphic design pattern, and this is giving me some really interesting results. For example, here, this looks really neat. I'm going to mask it out and then just continue to see what kind of design patterns I get. All right, so we have been in this thing for 20 minutes and nobody's mentioned Blender yet. Everything I watch now in the chat, somebody's got to mention Blender. It's so funny. Not that I am knocking Blender. It's there's some definite merits to the program. And I definitely am using it more and more in my workflow. But, I primarily still stay in ZBrush and still go to Maya for things that I don't. If I'm in a hurry and I've got a client work that needs to be done and I know how to do it in Maya, I just jump to Maya and do it. But eventually, hopefully, I can do everything that I need to do in Blender. And yeah, so this is kind of looking interesting. I like how these pluses lined up. That's funny. All right, let's kind of see if I can continue these black lines coming into the center. Like that, so you get like an interesting zebra pattern. That's pretty cool. All right, so let's just add yet another layer. All right, this kind of looks like a pirate type of outfit, so that's good. And then let's see if there's anything else that's interesting over here. Let's try this gray helmet. It's got some shiny elements to it as well. So, I mean, sometimes it's good to start from scratch, but sometimes it's good to just kind of overlay what's there. One thing you got to be aware of, especially if you have symmetry on, is this kind of crisscrossing that happens. So, you know, it's a good idea to just keep things in a way where that's not happening, like so. All right. This almost looks like it'd be a cool kind of Oakley suit. Rodrigo, I'm absolutely going to be modeling on top of these. Not only that, but I'm actually going to use these as ways to create a relief. So I'm liking this, but unless Oakley pays me, I'm not really going to use their logo. So unless they want me to design their clothes and they want me to use this process for them, I'm actually going to erase the logo, which is really easy to do. You just, you know, pick the color that's close to it, and you just paint it out like this. Right, and now you can put some other logo or something else in there. And also, I don't really like what these circle things are doing over here, so I'm just going to try and paint over them. Like so. So it's always good to kind of, you know, do your own poly painting as well. You just want to make sure you have enough resolution on the model. So this model is, let's see, what's the resolution here? This thing is about, looks like about 3.3 million polys. That's not too bad. Not for ZBrush. And then I don't really like what's going on with these as well. So let's go ahead and paint those out. Oops. I keep hitting that one button. And my 3D Wacom pen. Okay, that's good. I think I erased a little bit more than I wanted to there. Make my brush size smaller. Right, so here we go. There's that, and that looks pretty good. Like that. Let's see what the back looks like. Ooh, I got a bunch big Oakley logos back there too. Let's go ahead and get rid of those. So it's, you know, I mean, right now I'm just basically poly painting, which is a really cool thing to do in ZBrush. So I'm just going to paint this whole area like so. All right, and just get rid of those circles again. And I think that looks okay, so we'll just keep that as a layer. And let's start on another one. Okay, so let's go back to drag rectangle. And by the way, I don't have to use drag rectangle. I can also use drag dot, and let's do a few with that. And let's pick, oh, and what else is kind of interesting here? Let's try this one, which is also kind of a black and white design element. And see, these I'm dragging and dropping, but my brush size is too small, so I'm just going to make my brush size bigger. And now notice as I move these, I'm kind of getting more of these kind of flashing visions of the thing. So, you know, I'll kind of just do this for a while to see if I get something that is compelling and interesting. Actually, I'd rather just do the drag rectangle. It works better for me. So let's try doing this. That looks interesting. Oh, look at how cool that is over there, as I just destroyed it. Okay, let's just start from the elbow, work ourselves up. And I mean, you know, if I wanted to, I can always edit these images a little bit too to get rid of certain aspects of it, but that's kind of looking good. It's always good to kind of get these high contrast, different looks. I like what's going on with the knee, but I don't like what's going on here, so I'll just see if I can change that around. Right? So I think this is a kind of a cool way to do clothing design as well. I like what's going on here, so I'm just going to leave that be, and I like what's going on here as well. So I'm just masking those areas I want to keep, and then just continue to draw out different shapes here. See if I can get something more interesting. And that looks cool like that. Maybe, I don't know. No, yeah. Let's try doing something different. Okay. So maybe start from here. Let's see what that gives us. And always, I think, you know, if I'm getting frustrated, I always bring up that plane. I can start from the plane itself and then just start, you know, bringing in the shape from further away and see if I can get something more intriguing. So, you know, I mean, like within minutes, I can see like hundreds of different possibilities, and I can pick one that looks more interesting. Those look like bicycle shorts. That kind of looks good. Let's see. The problem is knowing when to stop. with these things because they're so neat looking that you kind of can continue to do them again and again and again. Let me switch the colors here. And you know, I mean, I could spend a very long time doing this and not have it, you know, and not kind of come up with something that I can stop at. Right, so that's kind of an interesting pattern. All right, so this looks kind of cool as well. Let's go ahead and keep this as a layer. And let's add another one. So here I'm just gonna, you know, I'm just gonna start with filling the object with white. Is RGB on? It is. Okay. Oh, that's right. The layer is still recording. Let me add a new layer, and this layer I'm going to fill with. I guess it's going to keep what's underneath. That's fine. I mean, I could turn all these off, and then I can see what's underneath. But right now, it's fine. And then let's go ahead and pick some new. And let's pick this one right here. This one creates some interesting patterns. So this one's creating some really cool looks over here. And again, I could, you know, be using this on the face as well. I don't have to just stick to the costume, but here I'm working on a outfit, not on the whole body. And I might do some work on the helmet in a little bit too. Maybe not in the stream. Maybe I might do that off camera because I'll be doing the same thing. So let's see. That kind of looks neat. That looks neat too, kind of like a halter. All right, so you can see here that just with this one pattern, I'm getting some very, very cool design elements. All right, so here I like what the front looks like, but I don't know if I want to draw on the back and destroy what's there. So what I'm going to go is just go in here and turn back face mask off, or on, sorry, and then that way I can just work on the back separate from what's on the front. So maybe see if I can get those shoulder things happening in the back as well. So yeah. So where do you all work? I'm kind of going to ask questions since you guys are not. Oh wait, where we go. I do have a question. Why do you have that plane crossing her body? Oh, okay, that's a good question, Rodrigo. The reason why I have that is because, and let me bring it back, is because, you know, I'm starting to drag from the body on out, right? And so the center of the image is always going to be on the body. And if I don't want that, I can just bring this plane up and I can start anywhere on the plane and drag it out, and then it just kind of comes over to the body. So it just gives me a bigger area to start from. And I can resize that plane if I want to. Does that make sense? So it's just so I don't have to, because here, and basically what drag rectangle does is it starts from the center of this image and drags out. And if I don't want it to do that, I want it to start the center to be somewhere outside of her body. That's what the plane is for. Hopefully that answers the question for you. Okay, cool. And then, so yeah, where do you work? I'm curious to know. See, nobody's answering the question. Do you guys work in the industry? Do you guys work doing this? Is this a hobby for you? What's the... I'm just trying to gauge the interest level of what you guys are doing. Maybe, oh, cool, all right. There's a bit of, okay, so Brazil, beginner in ZBrush. Okay, so if you're a beginner in ZBrush, do you work in other programs? Do you work in the industry, or you're just learning? Where do we go? I don't work, still learning. Okay, so I'm still trying to work in the area. What area are you in, Mr. Sampson? Okay. Oh, hey, Nick, how's it going? I know you. I've met you before. You do motion graphic design? That's awesome. It's awesome when I see somebody in here that I know from outside of the stream. Okay, yeah, it's good to see you, man. Hopefully we'll see each other again in person. maybe DesignerCon or something. I think that's the last time I saw you was at DesignerCon years ago. Okay, so Rodrigo is a freelancer, 3D generalist, mostly for the scenography industry. What's the scenography industry? That's interesting. What do you guys do? All right, this is starting to look pretty cool here. I'm trying to get the something really neat to happen in the knee area, and so for some reason it's just not happening. So maybe I'll start out, so this is a good time to start out from outside. Good to see you too, man. Thank you for coming in. That's great. Hopefully one of these days we'll see each other in person again. Right. Man, they're still calling for artists for ZBrush Sculpt Off. That's going to happen like pretty soon. If anybody wants to participate in that, if you feel you're good enough, it's really a fun process. I've done it 2 times live, and the first time I won 3rd place. The second time I won. I didn't win. I got last place. I guess I unwon it. But it depends on who the artists are and who the judges are and how the process is. But I don't really care about winning or losing. It's just fun to do it. It's just fun to kind of sit in a room with all these amazing artists and just see what comes out in the period of 3 hours. Okay, so this is looking good. I'm gonna save that as a layer, and I think I can add more layers if I want to. But how many do you have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 layers. I think 8 should be enough. 8 is enough, right? That's such a bad dad joke right there. All right, let's try this orange one, see what we get with that. Ooh, that's looking pretty cool right off the bat. Look at that, just something really quick. It's amazing when you get results like right away. And you don't have to do like a bunch of them. Let's see. Yeah, it's a method. Scott Robertson was the person who kind of did this with Modo a while back. So I don't want to take credit for coming up with the method myself. But I've definitely taken that same thing into the next stage just to get some interesting results from ZBrush. Okay, so now we've got all of this happening like this. Oh man, I just want to get this orange area to be orange. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and go to just manual poly painting, pick that orange color from here and just paint this area orange. So you can see sometimes you just have to help it along, but it's not a big deal. It's always good to poly paint. It just adds a kind of a fun effect. And maybe I'll make this area here orange as well. And then let's get rid of these Oakley logos right here. And let's use this as well. So again, I'm kind of, doing a tribute to the design that's there in a way, and I'm also using some of the elements in what's going on here also. So this is kind of like photo bashing, where I don't know if you guys do photo bashing or know what that is, but a lot of concept designers just use photos and bash them together. In the end of the day, you don't really know where those are coming from, but they definitely do inspire and help with the process of creating something new. I think I'm just going to make this part orange as well. I think that'll work better. All right, okay, keep pressing that button with the 3D mouse. And the only reason why I'm using that 3D mouse is because I basically use the 3D button just to bring up this radial thing in the Wacom world, and use that to basically quickly change between brushes. It's just another way of kind of automating a quick menu. What I would really like is to be able to just think what I want to do and have ZBrush like switch to that tool. Wouldn't that be awesome? Instead of fishing through menus. I mean, there's different ways of making your workflow faster. One of them is to put buttons that you use a lot on the UI, which is nice. The other one is to use these menus that I've set up. So I'm always working on making my interface faster and getting through my work a lot faster than I can, as fast as I can. And people always ask me, well, can you share your UI? And I'm like, I can, but it's probably going to change tomorrow, so it's not really going to help. I have shared my color scheme, though. It is available online. You can get it for free on Gumroad. All right. So, right, Mark Seljan is teaching. Where do you teach? Oh, and you do industrial design. That's awesome. So this should kind of help you with some of the things you're designing. Because, I mean, I'm using this with a person, but there's nothing stopping you from using it on other elements as well. Oops. Go back to the paintbrush. All right, so I think we're done with all the different layers. Now that I have all these layers, I'm just going to stop the recording of them. So I'm going to click here and stop the recording. And now what's really nice is I can just go and turn these on and off. So, and they show up from the bottom on up. So here was the first one. Okay, so there's some elements I like here. And then this was the second one we did. And this one, you know, based on the other ones, is not really that compelling. I liked some of what was going on here and here, but it's not compelling enough to keep. So I'm going to actually get rid of this layer. So I'm just going to delete this one. And then let's see, this one was really cool. And this one's kind of cool too. And I can combine these, by the way. So this slider here will allow you to show what's underneath. So you can combine some of the elements of the layer beneath it with some of the layers that are on top. So here I'm just trying to kind of bring out what was below here. And if there are certain things I want to erase, I can just go to that layer. Like let's say on this layer, let me see if there's something I don't like. Actually, this layer is pretty cool. All right, so the first layer, there's nothing to erase on, but the second layer, let's see if there's anything on here that I don't want to keep. So I'm going to bring that up, and let's say I don't want to keep this area. So if I hold Alt down and oops, I should be on that layer and have record mode on. So if I have that layer there and have record mode on, I can just go in here and use if I hold the Alt key down, it will erase it. Now it kind of creates this weird fuzzy border. If you don't want that, you can just turn this alternate button off, and then you get kind of crisper edges. So I'm just erasing this one area over here, like so. I don't want to keep this area. And then turn record off. And then so that area is gone, and this is what I'm getting. And I like what's going on here. So now let's go ahead and start bringing in this to see if there are any elements in here that I want to keep. You pop it on to 100% here, and I don't know if there's anything that compelling in this layer. I kind of like what's going on here. Let's see if that adds anything to what we had before. Not really, so I can delete this layer as well. All right, let's see what's going on with this one layer right here that I just turned on. I just go to the one on top. Okay, how about this one? Turn that all the way up. Okay, there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on in this layer that I want to keep. But there's some things I want to erase as well. So let me just go to here. And I don't really like what's going on in the arm. So again, I'm just going to hold Alt down and erase all of the stuff that's in the arm. And maybe erase what's going on here in the shoulder. So then whatever is underneath is coming out. Like so. All right. Should do like a drinking game with however many times that menu comes up. And then I can erase this part here too. I kind of like what's happening with the shoes here. Let's see in the back. I can probably get rid of most of this right here. Same thing with the arms. And same thing with this over here. All right, so, all right. Oh, sporting goods, dude. Yeah, you can definitely use this with sporting goods, this workflow. All right, so that's that. And then let's turn on this last layer, which was the orange layer, and let's start kind of dimming these down a bit. And I can just kind of play around with these layers to get a look that I really like. All right, so now that I'm kind of happy, let's say I like this look right here, I'm just going to go do a quick save and have a swig of tea while that's going on. And then once that's done, I guess I can wait for this to happen. I can go ahead and do some of the other things that need to be done here. All right, so that's done. That's looking great. Okay, so let me just play around with these a little bit more. More of this. It's kind of looking okay. And then let's see, I'll do a little bit more of this layer right here. It's kind of getting rid of some of the designs. Maybe not so much of this one. Maybe, let's see. And I just want enough of it to show because I'm going to be using this kind of as an idea to sculpt on. So that's kind of an interesting design right there. And another thing also what's really nice is like this thing on the arm here isn't showing up and I want it to show up. So what I can do is I can bring that layer down one. So now I've got this one all the way in the back. And then I've got this one on top of it, right? And I can just reduce this to, you know, so I can have those, like that perforated area in the arms to show up. Okay, so that's there. And then let's see, I can play around with this one. You can reorder the layers as well. You're not really forced to stay on whatever is there. And I think this orange is really kind of taking over everything. So now that's good. And slowly bring this in. And I don't know why this layer is really not... What is this one layer? Let's see. Oh, this layer. Okay, yeah. No, it's showing up. Okay, so now I've got enough information here to go off of. So what I can do is I'm going to do, like I wish there was a way I could just save these layers, but I can't. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and bake the layers. So now that I've baked the layers, this is just poly paint. Oh, yeah, there was a way to do that. Let's see if I can go back. Oh yeah, okay, cool. So if I wanted to keep those layers, there's a way to do it, and I'll show you how that is. So I'm going to go ahead and bake all this. And then I'm going to go to texture map. And by the way, this model does have UVs. So if I look at the UV map option here and do morph UV, you'll notice that it does have UVs, right? So what I want to do now is I just want to capture this so I have it as a texture. So what I will do here is go to texture map and go to new from polypaint, and now I've got this as a texture map, so I can at any point in time bring this in. So I'm going to turn texture off, and let's see if this will work. Actually, let me clone the texture too. Texture map and clone texture. So now I've got a copy of that texture in here in my textures. There it is, and I'm going to turn it off for now, and then let's see if I undo. I'm discovering something new here. If I undo, go back to where the layers will show up, if I still have that texture map, and I do. Okay, so that's a good way to kind of get that merged texture map and keep your layers as well. So now what I can do is I can go in here and check this out. This is going to be pretty cool. Is I can go in here in the layers. So that way it's non-destructive. I can still work with these if I want to. But I can create a whole new layer. So now I've got a new layer, and what I'm going to do with that layer is I'm going to go to texture map and load and choose that texture. So now that texture is there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to poly paint from that texture. So now what I have is I've got all of those layers, right, in the configuration that they're in, and I can turn all of those off and just have this layer on. And it should be, I don't know why it's not. I'll do it one more time. I'll go to texture map. There it is, texture on. And then what I want to do is this in record mode? Maybe that was the problem. It wasn't. Okay, so now it's in record mode. And now what I want to do is I want to poly paint from texture. Let's turn colorize off, poly paint from texture. I don't know why. Oh, I should choose the texture. That would help. Okay, there it is. Poly paint from texture. Huh. All right, well, what happens if I have this off? Let's see if this works. Recording off. Maybe this doesn't work to poly paint it from texture if you have record on. So let's try and see if it works now. Here we go. That worked. Okay. All right, so now I've got this on here. And now I'm basically done. But I don't know if I kind of like the color scheme here, so let's just adjust the colors. So adjust colors is in poly paint as well. And let's see if I kind of start moving through the hues here, if I get a hue that is more interesting to me. Let's pick something like maybe here, like a cyan blue color. And then let's play around with the contrast a little bit. And let's reduce the red. And let's reduce the green, or like so. I'm kind of liking this bluish color. And let's see if I can get, this is good enough. And then let's reduce the blue intensity a little bit, the green intensity a little bit, the red intensity. So I'm getting exactly this, but I'm getting it in a different variation. And then I can desaturate it a little bit if I want to. And that's good because it's kind of bringing out some of the features in here. And let's see, intensity about there is good. And then if I want to add a different tint to it for it to look a little bit different. So let's say I want to add it like a navy blue tint. I can do that as well. That adds a navy blue tint to the whole image. And that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that. And now I've got a different variation of this. Now, remember that as we have been doing this, let me go back all the way to the start. I don't know why I didn't remember it, but I can just go all the way to the start here. I can do it after the fact, which is really cool. I'm going to go to a point where she doesn't have any poly paint on her. Maybe I don't need to go back so many steps, but it's fine. We can just wait for it to just kind of remember where it was. Okay, so there's a question. I guess I'll answer that question while this is happening from Dad Kooky Boy. Great name. Okay, so why is this taking so long? Oh, there's 534 undo. Okay, so now it's just going all the way back to here. All right, no big whoop. What I'll do is here, I'll just jump back, which is going to take a while as well. But I'll answer that question. So if you see a 2D concept art and you want to recreate it in 3D, would you need permission from the creator of the concept art? I don't know. It depends on who it is, right? It depends on the person. What I would recommend is what I would recommend you do is definitely contact them. And they might want you to do it. You know, they might be excited about the fact that you're going to do that, right? So they might be like, yeah, please do that. But also you might want to let them know what their conditions are. And if you... Mr. Sampson saying, would duplicate make my life easier? And the answer is it would, but there are different ways to skin this cat. I'm actually going to use a different method that will make this a lot easier for me. I don't know why I didn't remember that one stage over here that I'd saved, but it doesn't matter. There are ways around it. So, you know, hopefully that answers your question, that cookie boy, about doing the thing. But, you know, if you do it if you ask their permission and they don't answer you, and if you try to contact them and they don't answer you, I mean, at least do 3 different ways of contacting them. Find out what their email address is, try to contact them through Facebook, or, you know, try to find them and make sure you do at least 3 tries per kind of service. And if they don't get back to you, it doesn't mean they don't want to respond. It could be that they're really busy or they've got something else going on. So in that case, if you still want to do it, you can move forward and do it. But then when you're done and you're showing it, make sure you mention that this is based on their concept in the description of whatever it is. And I think you should be okay. And the worst case scenario is you'll get a cease and desist letter that says, you know, I don't wish you to do this, in which case you have to take it down. But yeah, it shouldn't be an issue. I think there are a lot of artists that would like it if you made their stuff in 3D, as long as, of course, you don't deprecate it in any way. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I want a kind of a blank version of this, and then I want a version that's painted. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do what I did earlier. I'm just going to go to texture map. I'm going to say from polypaint, and now I've got this as a texture. I'm going to clone it, so I've got a copy of it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this off, and I just want to make sure I got no layer action going, and I do. So I'm just going to go ahead and just delete all the layers because I don't need them anymore. I've got a quick save version of this thing, so I'm not really going to care about any of the layers. So I don't have any layers here. And now that I don't have any layers, I'm just going to go ahead and fill this object with let me make sure the texture is off. And I'm going to go ahead and choose kind of the initial color and fill the object with that initial color. All right, so now that I've got this, just one second. Okay, sorry about that. And so now that I've got this going on, what I want to do now is I want to create the color. So now that I've got this in this setting, I'm just going to go ahead and delete all the undo stages. I don't need them anymore. So I'm just going to go to Edit, Delete Undo History. So that all the undo stages are gone. I have this. And what I want to do now is I want to go ahead and turn the texture on. So this is back. And then I'm going to go to Polypaint and tell it to polypaint from the texture. So now I've got that on. I don't need the texture map anymore. I'm going to turn the texture map off. Okay, so this is polypaint. So now I've got a state where this is blank. It's white, and then I've got a state where it has this pattern on it. So what I'm going to go is I'm going to go here, and I'm going to control click so it remembers what it is, and then move over to here. And now it's got this as a pattern. And what I want to do is I want to use this new feature that's in ZBrush 2021.7 under masking, which is mask changed points. So when I click on that, what that's going to do is it's going to mask this image in such a way that whatever's changed from when it was white is going to be masked. So if I want to see that mask, I can just go to subtool here. I'm going to turn off polypaint so it's not on. And I don't know if the texture map is on again. It's on. Let's turn that off. So now you can see that there is a mask over there, right? I mean, you can kind of barely see it. And if you want to play around with the mask, you can. What you can do is you can always shrink and blur and do all that stuff. But they've also added this boost and dilute mask. So I'm going to go ahead and boost it. Let's see. Boosting is kind of getting rid of it, so that's not good. I'm going to try and dilute it. And dilute will start bringing out some of these details, right? So now I can see in the mask some of these details from the thing coming on. Okay, so that's good. And of course I can always play around with the contrast of the image to get more of this, but I can also do the dilute and boost. So now that I've got this mask, let me make sure I've got that morph target stored. I'm going to delete that morph target and store a new one just because I want to keep the shape. And then the next thing I want to do is just go into deformation and inflate this. And now I'm getting geometry from that pattern, right? So before I just had paint, now I've got geometry and paint, right? And inflate is kind of a little bit strong, right? So, you know, this is at level 0, and this is at level 1. Here, I'm just going to do this by typing it in so you can see it better. So here, I'm just going to go to the inflate and just type in 1. And you can see 1 is, I guess 1 is not that bad. Let me undo that, and let's try putting in, let's say 5. So 5 is actually not bad. So inflate actually is not being, I think with this mask, which is kind of subtle, it's not doing much of a change. So here I'll just kind of try and go, I'll go a little bit over what I want it to be. So maybe like go to here, and notice here I've got a really neat looking costume, right? And I can also, by the way, invert the mask. So if I just, and in this case, I probably want to hide the body. I want to hide the head and the hands, because if I invert the mask, which I'll do this way, then if I inflate, and it's going to inflate the head and the hands too, which I don't care about right now. But let's see if that gives me a better pattern. And if it does, it's easy enough to just go back to what I had before. So let me do this. Okay, and I'm liking what's happening here in the arms, but you can see what's happening to her face and her hands, which is not what I want. So in order to prevent that from happening, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide those parts. So in order to do that, I'm going to bring this up again and bump down over to subdivision level 1. And I'm going to start doing the same thing I did before. I don't know what's going on, but it's kind of wanting not to. Here we go. All right. And I'm just going to, I think I need to be on a actual vertex for this to work. I think that's my problem, is I'm clicking on either an edge or a surface, and that's what's popping this up. And this is better done with a mouse. Hide this. Okay, so I've got all these. Now I'm just going to invert that so they don't show up. It's kind of funny because their eyes show up, but the rest does not, which is okay. And then just go to the highest subdivision level, bring this back up. Did I lose my mask? I did lose my mask. Oh, man. All right, no worries. I guess what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do something a little bit different, which is I'm going to duplicate this model. Right, so here it is. I'm just going to duplicate it. Right, so I've got a copy of it, and then I'm going to go to the first one, and I'm just going to erase these other parts. So for that, I have to be on the low subdivision level again. Let me hide this one, and I'm just going to go ahead and actually let me do it with this one right here and keep this one as is. So Q. Go all the way to the high subdivision level, come down to this one, hide this one, and with this one, just pump it down all the way to the bottom. And yeah, I don't know if the mask is going to say, it should. All right, so let's just do this. And I'm going to hide these guys. And let's do the same thing with the hands. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete hidden. So delete all the hidden parts. All right, and that's going to get rid of them. And then I'm just going to bump this up to the high subdivision level. Now, the good news is that the UVs are the same, so I can just do that whole process over again. I'm just going to bring this back here. I'm going to go to texture map, texture on. So there's the suit, the costume. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to poly paint from texture. Okay, so now I've got that as poly paint. Go to the texture, turn it off. Okay, oops, off. And then now this is just poly paint, like so. And go to where I did before I did this, here. Store that. And then go to here and just do that process again. Mask change points, so there's that. Go ahead and hide the poly paint on it. Notice here I can bring the lady up in the back. And one other thing I want to do now is just make this outfit just a little bit bigger. Maybe I can just do it with a little touch of inflate. Let me see if I can just do, let's see how much of a deformation an inflate of 1 will do to this. So here I'll just go to this, type 1, hit enter. That's perfect, right? So now I've got this as a border. And now let me turn, let's see, is the poly paint on? No, I'll just have to do it again. No worries. Texture map is there, texture on, poly paint from texture paint. There it is. And let's see if it turned texture off. Okay. And I've got that thing memorized here, so that's all good. And then I'll just go to masking and let's mask changed points. So now we've got that. We can turn poly paint off. And I think the texture is still on, so let's turn that off too. All right, so now I should just have the mask, and I probably need to go in here and let me see if I can do some work with that. Masking, let's delete that mask. No, that's weird. Okay, so do I not have the poly paint? I guess I didn't get the poly paint on here. Yeah, all right, let's see this one more time. Here we go. Let's just go to this point. You have to do these in the right sequence, otherwise you get into trouble. So let me just do that real quick. I apologize for the repetitive steps, but it's probably stuff you guys face all the time also. All right, so the first thing I want to make sure here is, let me make sure that these menus are all open at the same time. So texture off. Okay, so there is poly paint there. Okay, and then this one is where it is. That's the problem. So I need to store this when we got it to be a little bit bigger. This is where it needs to be stored from. And for good measure, let's just go ahead and store a morph target for it there too. Okay, so we're good. And now I'm back to here. Okay, so we've got the morph target. I've got the poly paint is gone for some reason, but let me do that over again. Texture on, poly paint. I'm probably doing something wrong here, but no worries. Okay, poly paint from texture. Okay, good. Now there is poly paint. There is no texture. Okay, so this is just poly paint. And then, so there is a stage that was saved. Let me make sure I've got my morph target, which I do. So now is when I do the masking, mask change points. There's that. And then let's go to geometry here, or sorry, subtool, and turn off that. Why is the mask not there? That's weird. Oh, because it had a mask before. That's why. No worries. We'll do this one more time. Here we got clear the mask. I'm going to store this point here and then do it from this point forward. So here we go, and let me make sure I have the morph target, which I do have the morph target, and then I just want to make sure that I've got poly paint on, and texture map as well, texture on. Poly paint from texture, texture's off, that's the poly paint, that's good, so that's the new stage. And now it should work. Masking and mask changed points. Okay. And let's see if that remembered it for some reason. And if it didn't, then I don't know what is going on. Yeah, for some reason it's not. I wonder if it's because I've got, here, let me do this whole thing one more time, step by step. First of all, make sure there's no mask. Second of all, store a morph target. Okay, so that's where we're starting out. And then I'm going to go to texture map, texture on, so there's the texture, poly paint from texture, so there is the poly paint now, texture is off. And now mask changed points. Okay. And did it do it? Nope. And I don't know why. Wonder what I'm doing wrong. It seems to be masking the borders of it for some reason. I don't know what's going on. But let me make sure of another thing too. Maybe that's the problem, is that I want to make sure that I don't have anything. Okay, good. So there's nothing in the subdivision levels. So why is it not working is my question. All right, so let me see. I'm going to look at the questions here and answer them and just give myself a minute of a break here. It's always good to defrost your mind and start over again. Okay, Mark, goodbye if you've already left, but you can always watch this after the fact. All right, and running 20 minutes behind. Okay, good. And Sawtooth is working alongside. That's great. And so convert Pet Richter is not going to go to bed. Okay. All right. So let's try and see if we can make this work. So I'm just going to clear the mask. I want to make sure I'm on this. I'm going to solo it just to kind of see where it is. So here, I'm going to go ahead and poly paint this just white just for kicks. I'm going to turn this off. Oh, let's make sure I don't have layers going on. That could be what's going on. So let me go to layers and make sure there's no layer action happening. Okay, there isn't. Good, awesome. So now I'm just going to go ahead and pick a white color here and just fill object. Okay, so we're good. Okay, so, and then I'm going to go in here, oops, and make sure that I don't delete the morph target and store a morph target. So I've got a morph target with it being this way. All right, good. So now I'm going to go ahead and go to texture map and turn texture on. So there's that. Okay, and I don't know why, but the texture's got these weird borders, but it doesn't matter because I'm probably going to put different pieces in there anyway. Okay, so now then I'm going to go to poly paint and I'm going to say poly paint from texture. Okay, so that texture is off, poly paint is on, so that's all good. All right, and let me go back to when it was white here and store that. Go here, that's changed. And let's go ahead and go to masking and say mask changed points. All right, so now we have the mask. Let's see if the I can see that it's looking a little bit different than what we did before. All right, awesome, awesome, awesome. We've got it working now. I think I just was kind of working a little bit too fast. It's always good to kind of slow down. Like I said, it's always good to stop and start over again when you run into that kind of thing. All right, so here we're going to go into masking, and I think we tried the dilute mask. Yep, that gave us this. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and invert that mask, so I can just do that here as well, inverse. All right, and now is when I can go in and do that deformation. And I'm just going to use inflate here to get this pattern. So all we're doing is just inflating this to get this pattern. And if I want to see kind of what this looks like with the person behind it, I can just go off of solo, and there she is. So this is looking more like a really thick spacesuit, but that's fine. So since I stored a morph target, I can just go to that morph target and start using the morph here, and I can do that pretty slowly as well. So I'm just going to morph this down to get this pattern. All right, and this is looking pretty good. I think this is what I'm going to go with. So this is going to be the final suit. Now what's really cool about this also is that I still have that poly paint. So not only do I have the suit, but I also have this poly paint. And at this point, I'm really ready to go ahead and start working on this as a kind of a sculpt, right? One of the things you'll notice here is that you've got some jagged edges. And if I don't want those jagged edges, I can do one of two things. I could either go into deformation here and just say smooth polish by features. I don't need to do a lot of it. I just can put in maybe a value of 1 and see if that gets rid of some of these jaggies. So I can just zoom in here. I still have a little bit, and let me continue to do that polishing. And as you can see now, that's kind of gone, so it's all good. All right, so all this is good now, and I'm ready to start kind of working on some of these details. So I really like what's going on in the shoulders here. I don't really want to touch that. And I do see where those kind of areas were with the holes, so I can replicate that. And to do that, I'm going to use a layer brush, let's say. And I'm going to use a layered brush with drag dot, use this alpha, and just clear the mask. And start, let me solo this out here. And I think the mask should not be on. Maybe I need more intensity. The intensity is that. Make sure everything is cool with this subtool. I'm on the subtool, okay. Paint is on. Let me turn the paint off because I can still see where that is. And maybe the layer brush is not the right brush to do this with. Maybe I should use just a standard brush. BS standard, there you are, and then just choose drag dot and just use like a circle alpha, maybe this one, alpha 6, and oops. Okay, so there's the dot. Yeah, why didn't layer work? There's a layer brush. I don't know why layer does not want to work. Maybe the intensity is too low. Let me just pump that up, make this smaller. That's weird. I can also use one of these other brushes that I have here. Let me use this one. See if this one works. Yep, that one works fine. Okay, so yeah, I don't understand why the layer brush isn't working with this. Let me go ahead and let me see if this is actually the issue. So I'm just going to go ahead and switch back. Oops, I did not want to do that. All right, Control X, and I'm going to delete the morph target that's there. Let's see if that makes a difference. It does. That was the issue. Okay, cool. And also, I want to make sure that dynamic subdiv isn't on. That causes issues sometimes too. And that is not on. Nope, dynamic subdiv is not on at all. So we are good. All right, so let's see if the layer brush works now. Layer. Yep, here we go. This is what I've been wanting to do this whole time. And the intensity now is way too much. I want to go this way and I want to go inwards, maybe a little bit more. And so now I'm just using that what was underneath there to kind of bring out that feature, right? So I'm just using that as the idea underlying the design. So there's 1, there's 2, maybe a little bit deeper than that. What am I at? 29. Let's go for 40. Exactly what I want. So there's 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, right? And then maybe do 1 over here and 1 over here. All right, so now that I've kind of got that as an idea, I don't have to, you know, stick with what's there. I can maybe do these on the back as well. It's kind of a neat pattern. Why not include it on the rest of the model? So I'm basically using that as inspiration to just add my own kind of sculpting details. So there's that, and that looks pretty neat. And if I want to exaggerate some of these details, I can use the contrast brush. So I think I've got that here. Contrast, yep. The contrast brush is really good for, like, if I like this, but I want it to be a little bit more protruded, I can just use this to kind of bring out some of these details. All right, best ever, good morning. Best ever, where are you coming in from that it's morning? he didn't respond yet. Okay, so here we go. I'm just basically using the contrast brush here to just bring out some of these details. I like live streaming because, like, when you watch tutorials, you don't see people mess up. You see them like everything works great, and you're like thinking, "Oh, I'm such a bad artist. I can't do this." But everybody goes through these processes, so everybody has problems. It's always good to kind of know how to get around the problems. All right, from India, awesome. Where from India? Where are you in India? Are you in New Delhi? Are you in Bangalore? I always like it when we get international people joining in. So I really like what's going on here on this part of it, and the other detail that I really liked here was this detail over here. So I'm going to go ahead and use the contrast brush to bring some of that out as well. I've got a little bit of it on the arm. I've got a little bit of it over here. So you can see here that I'm bringing out some of those details that were not there before. And I'm just going to go throughout the model and use the contrast brush to bring out some of the patterns that were there before. Okay, and that's kind of giving me a little bit more of an interesting look to this. Okay, and now I'm just going to use the planer brush to go in here and establish some, or H-polish, sorry, not the planer brush, to establish some neat patterns here. So here, I don't really know if this is working for me the way it was, so I'm just going to go ahead and create a plate over here. And remember, what I can also do is I can, and I'm going to be peeling off some of these parts as their own geometry as well, right? So I'm going to kind of maybe smooth out some of these areas. I don't really have anything going on in the chest area, but I do have some lines kind of barely coming in, so I'm just going to go in here with Damien Standard and see if I can bring some of those out. So now I'm just basically doing organic sculpting, I guess is the name for it, but just doing normal ZBrush sculpting. I am in Chandigarh. Where's Chandigarh? Is it in northern, southern? What part of India is that? I don't think I've ever, I'm not familiar with that part of India. All right, so how are we doing on time? We're doing okay. So yeah, I'm going to go till 10. I might go a little bit over as well. Doesn't matter. Now that I've got the things that I need to take care of taken care of, I can have fun with ZBrush. Right, that's done. So I'm trying to get some interesting thing going on here in the rib area. That's cool. And then so here I'm just basically embellishing some of these areas just by doing some normal sculpting. And again, it's always good to bring the person out just so you can see what's going on. And this is kind of looking like a really neat spacesuit. So I'm just going to continue to do that. Okay, and it kind of, you know, it looks really neat. I think I'm definitely going to be doing the helmet as well, so I might do that in a little bit. But why don't I just continue just to sculpt here? And I'm just looking for different shapes in from the patterns that are in there. So maybe there's some sort of a thing coming down this way. So I'm just basically using Damien Standard, trying to find some interesting shapes. Let's see, do we have any? All right, it's near Delhi. Awesome. Do I know any good Indian artists? I'm sure. Yeah, I mean there are plenty of amazing Indian artists. think ZBrush has artists everywhere. There are good ZBrush artists almost in every country. So what kind of work do you guys do? Like what kind of, what is your kind of thing of choice? This area turned out to be a lot bigger than I wanted it to be, but it's fine. So what I can do here is if this suit is a little bit too big, what I could also always do is just go and use deformation, and let me see if I can make it a little bit less kind of inflated. This looks too much like a really big spacesuit, so I'm going to go ahead and use inflate in the negative direction to see if that would. No. Let's try -1 again. All right, that's okay. Now what happens with inflate sometimes is you get this kind of crossover area, and you can just smooth that down. You can always kind of jump down in subdivision levels and smooth it down too. So here, let me go up to maybe as soon as they start showing up and just kind of knock them down a bit. So what genre of work do you guys do? Anybody in here? I basically most of my work is sci-fi. I do monsters sometimes too. I might do a stream on monsters, maybe the next one. I don't know. Or maybe when it's Halloween time frame, I'll kind of do one of these kinds of things and create like some sort of a different type of a monster that this person would fight. All right, I think that's pretty good. I do have a little bit of weird wrinkly stuff going on here, but a good kind of thing to do with that is if you hold shift down and let go of shift and just move the mouse on those areas, it tends to kind of bring them down. I want to get rid of them, but I also don't want to get rid of some of these cool detail areas that I have. So whenever there's kind of a crease, it just does this type of thing. And I can probably go down one subdivision level and do that as well. All right, Friday night, people are like, hey, let's call Ara. He's done with his stream. Because I'm usually done by now. All right. All right, that's good. Okay, so now we're back to sculpting. Let me go back up to level 5 here, and let's start working on some of these other details. So a lot of these cool lines that were there are gone, but I can always bring them back. And once the idea is there, that's the hardest part, is coming up with the concept and the idea. But once that idea is there, you can always kind of embellish it or bring it back or do different things to kind of get that to work. So that's looking really neat here. Let me work on this area. And I mean, I can always be adding stuff to this as well, but all right, so let's kind of think about what we're going to do as far as plating is concerned. So plating means, like, let's say this is a piece of armor. Where would there be plates to kind of protect her? There probably would be shoulder pads, and I can use this pattern to generate those shoulder pads. So, and at any point in time, if I want to remember what the underlying thing looked like, I can always bring up that poly paint too. Like, so here's the poly paint, and I go, oh, okay. And now I remember what was going on in these different areas. And what's really nice about this process also is that some of the stair stepping kind of creates like a stitching type of a look, which works out really nicely. This crease in the back is pretty stubborn, so I need to kind of maybe hit it with an H polish. we go. And let's hide that polypaint for now. And create something a little bit more faceted this way. All right. All right, so we got some students in here. Awesome. Where do you go to school? Comics Legend, sorry. Do you go to school in Los Angeles, or are you in another country? And are you studying this, or are you studying something else? All right. Okay, so we got somebody from Pakistan as well. Hello, hello, hello. I guess it's morning there. It's Saturday morning there, so everybody's kind of jumping on. All right. Oh, you're okay. You're working online and working on a portfolio. That's great. What work do you want to do in the industry? Have you determined that yet, or you're still looking into it? Oh, okay, cool. We've got somebody from Israel. Hello, hello. Eviatar. Hopefully, looks like Aviator. Aviator Baroque. Hello, hello. So cool. We got people from all over the world. I always wonder if there's people from China. I wonder if this is allowed in their broadcast or if it's not. I think YouTube is blocked. I don't know if Twitch is as well. We've had people from Japan. We've had people from Russia. We've had people from Australia, from New Zealand. How much RAM does my PC have? Currently, I have 128 gigs of RAM in my machine, but it doesn't really matter with this. The only reason why I have a lot of RAM is because I usually for work I have a lot of programs open at the same time. But I had 64 for the longest time, and at some point I upgraded to 128 because. And I didn't upgrade it for ZBrush. I upgraded it for Photoshop because I had to do a lot of photo kind of retouching on multiple photos that needed to be on at the same time. So that's why I upgraded the RAM. All right. Let's see if I can turn Do Not Disturb on so people stop calling me. Everybody's like, it's Friday night, let's party. How is COVID in where you guys live? Is everything okay? Can you guys go out and do everything normally, or is it still kind of weird? Things are I'm in LA, I'm in Los Angeles, and things are slowly starting to get back to normal here. I would definitely say it's not back to 100% normal, but it's getting there. All right, let's work on these arm pieces here. So this would be a really good place. And you can see I'm kind of getting these chatter on the edges, but I don't really care. I can fix all that. Like, you know, just to fix all this in one shot, I can just go to the lower subdivision level. Let's say go to level 5 here, or maybe a little bit higher. 3, and just do clip curve, and that should fix it, like so. In Canada, oh, okay, yeah, great. Canada, and it is okay in Quebec. That's great. Québécois, hello. Yeah, so I'm just kind of, and I don't really care about these edges as much because I'm probably going to put a piece of geometry on there to counterbalance that. All right, so let's go back up here and let's do some more work here in this arm area. Again, I'm just using Damien Standard, just going in. And you can see here, like I've only spent, well, you know, it's not even been 2 hours. It's been an hour and a half I've been doing this, and I already have like almost a suit done. In, you know, kind of as kind of the initial concept. And now all I have to do is just detail it. So, you know, if I can do this in 2 hours, I can do maybe 8 of these a day and present them, and, you know, like if I have a game that has multiple skins, I can be doing 8 skins in 1 day. I mean, of course, there's a lot more work that will need to go into this, but, you know, getting to a place where I'm like, okay, well, this could work, is pretty fast. All right, so this is probably going to be some sort of a strap here. And I still think this is a little bit too big, so I'm going to try and see if I can deflate it. Let's see, do we still have that morph target? We don't. Okay, so what I'm going to do is store a morph target here. And go ahead and see if I can deflate this and pick something in between. Deformation and all right, so I'm getting these weird anomalies that are popping up that I don't want to get. I think this is a good place to start, but I'm getting a lot of these kind of crossover things. So what I'm going to do here is in the state that it's in here, I'm going to actually drop a little bit of a polish on this, and that should help a little bit with that. Yep, sure did. Right, and these are really kind of nifty things to know about. I mean, I did lose a little bit of detail, but again, I can use the contrast here to get some of that detail back. So I'm using the contrast slider here to get some of that kind of detail back that I lost. All right, I mean, it is softening up a bit, so unfortunately, it's not really that hard to go in. I should have done that before. It's still a little bit too much. I mean, it looks like it's padded, right? It looks like it's kind of a spacesuit, but we're just going to go with the fact that it is a spacesuit. All right. You're saying cyborg. It's not, but I can actually use the same exact method to get a cyborg. So if I wanted to, I could get this to be a cybernetic thing. I would use exactly the same methodology to do it too. I think the polish here just got rid of a lot of detail. So instead of sculpting it back, I'm just going to go back to where it was before. So what I like about ZBrush is you can just go back to undo states. I'm going to go back to where it was working, well, like maybe about here. This undo history line up here is just gold. All right, so I think about here is where I liked it. All right, so Eviatar, where in Israel are you? Are you in Jerusalem? Are you in Tel Aviv? Are you in Haifa? Oh, somebody's asking what software this is. This is ZBrush. And if you want to find out about ZBrush, you definitely can. There is a free version that you can download and start playing around with. It has some of these capabilities, not everything. And then there's one called ZBrush Core, which has more capabilities. And then there's ZBrush Proper. And the good news is you don't have to spend the, I think it's about $800–900 now. You don't have to spend that right away. What you can do is you can rent it, right? So you can do a subscription for a month or 2 months or 3 months, and you can try it out that way as well. It's really great. There's different ways of buying it. You don't have to commit to anything specifically until you feel comfortable with it. I mean, for me, I bought this, I bought ZBrush a long time ago, and I haven't had to pay for an upgrade. And it's just, they've been doing some really great updates to it over time, and it's been a great investment for me. And it's primarily the tool that I use. So, you know, whenever I'm on a project, I like to be on it, on ZBrush 90% of the time. Of course, sometimes the project does not really have to use this kind of technology, so then I tend to use other software. Sometimes I get work having to model something from CAD, and ZBrush can be used for that sometimes, but sometimes it's mostly retopology, so I would have to do that in some other software. Although ZBrush is getting better and better at retopology. So for example here, let's say I want to do a panel that is going to be this shoulder, right? Like I want this shoulder part here to be a panel. I could basically retopologize that one section on its own and not have it be part of not be part of what I was doing before. Okay. So here I've kind of messed this area up, so it's easy enough to fix. I just go to H polish, flatten it back out, flatten this area out as well, and I'm going to do these over because I like that kind of, I like what's going on here in the back. I just want that kind of nice pattern to be there, and I know where they are now. And if I need a guide again, I can bring up the poly paint to see where it is. So poly paint, come back, bam, there it is, and now I know where the places are. So again, I'm just going to go to the layer brush. Where are you? There you are, and it should remember all the other stuff for it. So here we go. Ooh, it kind of looks good coming outwards too, but maybe I can use that somewhere else. So there we go, there are those, and there are these. So now I just basically have a clean version of those showing up, and they look a lot better. So that's cool. Hide the poly paint and continue to sculpt. All right, so let's spend some time on the knees and the legs. We haven't done any work here. Ooh, that's not what I want. Oops. So let's see if I can get an interesting thing going on. Here we go. In the leg area with these patterns. Yeah, that works. Nope. But I'm going to try and do this other thing. So I'm not going to have it go inwards, but I'm going to have it go outwards. So that looks good. And just put one on the other side. That looks good too. There we go, like that. And then let's do the same thing over here. So that looks good as well. So what I'm doing here is I'm smoothing it out and then putting another one on top. So because when it first places it down, it just basically goes on what's underneath. So now I'm basically just kind of protruding these out, then just kind of smoothing them a little bit. And that kind of looks neat right there. And let's go back to Damien Standard and see if I can do something of an interesting pattern this way. All right. All right, I'm kind of liking that. I like this, what's going on here too. So, you know, some of this is coming from the geometry, some of it is coming from the pattern, and some of it I'm just making up as I go along. All right, let's see. Okay, kind of near Tel Aviv. Okay, like 30 minutes. South or north? A kind of really general question. How would you approach retopping something like this? Okay. I'll let you know. And I've started with fan art of Cassiopeia from League of Legends. And I don't know what would be the best way to model her scales to retop them after. How would you approach it? I don't really know what Cassiopeia is. I don't, you know, funny enough, I live very close to Riot Games, but I have never played League of Legends. So, so I don't know who Cassiopeia is. I can look her up on the web in a minute, but let me kind of continue to work on this for now. But like this starts out with good topology. So right now, if I go all the way down to level 0, you can see that I've started out with good topology right off the bat. But if I didn't have good topology, the way I would retopologize this, there's different ways of doing it. You can use the latest way I'm doing it, and I'll actually, why don't I go into that real quick? So the latest way I've been doing that, I've been doing the retopology, is by using this method. So first I use this brush, which you can, by the way, download yourself as well. It's this brush that I made called the Kermaco primitives brush, and it just has a bunch of primitives in it, like this, right? And you can get that from my Gumroad. So let me just kind of do that real quick. So if you go to my website is kermaco.com, Kermaco.com. If you go there, you can hear all my different links to, there's my email address, Facebook, Instagram. And Instagram is, by the way, where I post my newest work. So here, I'll go ahead and go to my Instagram just because I want to show you guys something. So in my Instagram here, this model right here, it was done with the same method. So this model was using this exact same model I'm working with and was done with this exact same method. So if you guys don't mind, drop a like. And also, I'm trying to get to 2,000 followers. So if you guys can bump this number up to 2,000 in the next couple of weeks, that would be awesome. So just follow me on Instagram. But besides that, the reason why I was going here is if you go to my Gumroad, so if you go to Kermaco.com and go to my Gumroad, I have a free version of this brush that you can download. So this is $0. And I also have a $2.50 version of it that has some extra bits. If you don't need those, then just download this one. And here's where my UI colors are. So you can download those as well. So these two are free, and this one is $2.50. So I'm using that brush, and in that brush there's a plane, and I think the Pixologic has a primitives brush as well that has a plane. So what I usually do is I just go to that plane here, and I take my model and I draw out a plane. Now this one has multiple subdivision levels, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. So I've got a duplicate of it, and I'm going to delete all the lower subdivision levels. So suppose I have something like this, and it is something that is either like a 3D scan or something I've worked on in ZBrush, but I have not. It does not have good topology on it, or it's a Dynamesh model. And here I can even go and Dynamesh this just for kicks. So I'm going to go ahead and Dynamesh it at, let's say, 2048. Maybe that's, well, let's try and see what that gives us. Okay, so let's Dynamesh it. And now I've got this Dynamesh, so this is closed. So this is a completely different kind of model than I had before. And if I needed to retopo this, what I would do is, first of all, I would go to my brush here, or or you can pop in a plane, it doesn't matter, and just draw out a plane like this, anywhere, right? So let's say I'm going to do the chest first, so I'm just going to draw out these two planes. Okay, so there's that plane, and then I do a couple of other things where I just go in here and go into dynamic subdiv, and turn on dynamic. Oh, okay, so apparently the mesh has some issues. If you run into that, it's easy to fix. You just go into geometry, mesh integrity, check mesh, okay, and then fix mesh, and that fixes it. So now this should be good. All right, so we're good now, and then I just basically go in here and draw out those two polygons. So now those two polygons are basically sitting over here, and the rest of the model is masked. So the next thing I do is just go into subtool and split masked points. So now that is going to be a separate piece. And now I can just hide everything, and I'm going to be on this subtool, and this one is showing up underneath. Okay, so now this is showing up underneath. What I want to do now is do that thing with dynamic subdiv. So I go to geometry, dynamic, turn that on, turn smoothing off, and give it a little bit of thickness. So there's that, right? And also I like to turn polyframe on so I can see. And another thing I like to do is turn transparency on. Okay, so now I just go to the ZModeler brush, so BZM, or I've got it here as a shortcut, so BZM. It's this brush right here, and then for the polygon, I put it on do nothing, and for edge, I put it on extrude, and for vertex, I put it on move, but I want to make sure that it snaps to surface. So now if I move these vertices, they're going to snap to that surface. And then if I go to an edge, I'm just going to be extending that out. So now I'm just basically adding topology to this and retopologizing this model. And the I just want to make sure also this is set to snap to surface. Is it? It is free angle. I put it on taper size usually, and also smart attraction, snap to surface. Okay, so now it's just basically going to be snapping to the surface. And I know the vertex will snap to the surface as well. So I just basically go in and start drawing this out like so. Just kind of go back here and start it over. So there's this, and then just there's that, there's that, there's that, and then they snap together. Symmetry works really well. And then do this. So I'm just basically retopologizing this as I go along. And it's a pretty fast process. I could probably do this model in a very, very short period of time. Now this is one of many retopology options that you have in ZBrush. There's also, there is also this brush that you can use, which is the, let's see, what was it called? The curve something or another. Where are you? I think if I have it in my brushes here, I'll just find it easier that way. It is this topology brush. That's what it's called. Pretty simple enough. And with that, you can just basically go onto whatever model you are on. So I'm going to go to the subtool, turn polyframe off. And with the topology brush, you just basically draw curves like this. And wherever they intersect, it will go ahead and create these areas, and you can always kind of delete these other areas. So there's different ways of retopology, and you can use any one of these methods to do the retopology, and they all work really well. So hopefully that answers your question. Morph, chisel technique. She's half Medusa looking creature. Well, I mean, if it's a Medusa-looking creature, or if it's like a snake-like creature, then I would probably use the way I would do it is I would use here. I'll kind of let's say that I'm going to retopologize this leg right here, right? Probably the fastest way to do it is to use Z-spheres. So what I would do here is I just append a Z-sphere. Let me, I need to quick save sometime soon. So here I'm just going to turn symmetry, let me leave symmetry on, why not? I'm just going to go down to the lowest subdivision level and go to my Z-sphere here and pop it over here. I don't need transparent and ghost on. Well, actually I do. And here's the model. Let's say the leg is kind of the snake part of it. So with Z-spheres, what you could do, and let me resize this one so it's smaller. With Z-spheres, what you can do is you can, you know, if you're in draw mode, you can just draw another one of these things. So you start from the beginning and the end, oops, and then use W to move it to, like, this is the end of the let's say, the snake part. Right, so let's say like the bottom part of her is going to be a snake. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this over here like that. So here's where the tail starts and here's where the tail ends, okay? And let's say the tail is going to be smaller, so I'm going to scale this down a bit. So there's that. And then what I will do is just go ahead and add a bunch of Z-spheres like this and then move them around. So let's say, you know, it's going to come down like this to the ground and then it's going to coil around like so. Like that. Okay, so I'm just kind of making a really simple version of this, and then I can maybe put another one here, move that over to here. And then when I press A, this will actually be converted into geometry. And I can always go in here and make the geometry less dense and not use Dynamesh. And like have something like this, where it's really kind of low level geometry. And then, you know, so this is more like game res. And at any point in time, I can go and modify these Z-spheres and move them around. So let's say I want this to be a little bit more circular on the bottom. I can just add more Z-spheres down here, like so. And then just move them around, just so they coil around like so. Right? So hopefully that answers your question about how this would work for a snake kind of base, right? And I just press A, that's good. If I want to give it a little bit more density, I can just give it a density of 2. And there we go. So I have this part. And if I like this, I can just say make adaptive skin. And now I've got a part that just basically looks like this. And then the next thing I want to do is maybe remove this top part. Like so, and move too much. Go back to the selection brush here. I want to keep these. Oops. It's kind of at an angle, so probably would work better if I used lasso. So I'm just going to go to select lasso. And every time I say anything lasso now, I think of Ted Lasso. It's horrible. I don't know if you guys watch that show. It's pretty good. Oops. I'm going to do this one more time and I'm going to get it. All right, here we go. That. Okay, so now I've got that. I can delete that hidden part. I don't need it anymore. Okay, so now I've got this part, and it's just geometry, right? And I can always subdivide this and you know, sculpt on it. So hopefully this helps you. So the morph chisel technique, I don't know what you mean by that. Could you elaborate some more on it? And I can maybe go into that a little bit too. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're good. We got a little bit more time. I might go a little bit over today, just because we can. All right, so let's jump back into what we're working on here, and I don't need this anymore. I'm going to delete it. It's okay. And let's go back to what we were working on before. So, you know, I'm kind of a topology kind of person, so I usually start out with good topology just to maintain it. So you see I'm getting a little bit of jaggies here, so maybe I can now subdivide this one more time. And now it's going to be even denser geometry. And let's go to Damien Standard here and continue to refine these shapes to get a little bit more detail. Okay, good. If that helped you, that's great. Yeah, Z-spheres are awesome. And I don't know any other program that has anything like Z-spheres. And people give it a hard time in ZBrush, but they are one of the most powerful things imaginable, especially for tube-like shapes like snakes or wires and cables, or just anything that's tube-shaped works really well with Z-spheres. Yeah, there are some hero artists that I really like, and then, you know, they talk about, well, I can never learn ZBrush. The interface is too complicated, and like whenever I hear something like Z-spheres, it turns me off. And it's really disappointing because I think those artists, they're really great artists. They could do amazing stuff if they knew how Z-spheres worked. So hopefully over time they will discover it and then go like, what was I thinking? I can just imagine what like the great artists in history could have done with a tool like ZBrush, like Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo or Rodin or one of those artists, like what kind of amazing work they could do if they just knew that there was a tool like this. And now you can see that now that I've got more subdivision levels, I'm getting tighter shapes, and I'm kind of, you know, breaking my own rule here, which is not to go into much detail before I get the basic shapes done. So I'm just going to start going back and doing that. It's always good to stick to your own rules. All right. Oh, somebody was asking what the pie menu is. So the pie menu, Spear Chuck, that's a weird name. Hopefully it's not racist. Anyway, this radial menu that's coming up is part of the Wacom tablet. So if you go into your Wacom settings, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer you to Pablo Munoz Gomez's video on this. He did a whole video on how this works. But basically, I'll just kind of show a brief thing of it. Let me just bring this up. Which basically is the Wacom. Just go to pen settings. All right. I'll go over to here, and in the settings for your pen, right? If you go to mapping, you can go to express keys, and those are under functions. So if you go under functions and you go to on-screen controls, what you can do is you can basically have express keys, and I have one called ZBrush Radial, and then you can just assign different keystrokes that you have in ZBrush to those buttons, right? So that's just part of the Wacom thing. So whenever I have it mapped to a button, when I press it, this radial menu comes up. And I just have some brushes on here, brushes that I use all the time just to make it faster for me to get to them. All right, so I'm just gonna, oops, I don't want to divide this one more time. I just want to go to my 6th subdivision level. There we are, and this is kind of looking a little bit better, but it's you know, this chatter on the edge, I can get rid of it very easily by just putting another piece of geometry on there, which I'll probably do at some point. But I can also do this to just soften it up so it doesn't look so intense. All right, so let's continue working on this. I was working on the legs when I kind of shifted focus. Whoops, I inadvertently hit the chat menu. Let me bring that back up. Okay, here we go. All right, Etienne du Berger. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Have a good night as well. And you have a Yenova tablet. Okay. All right. Cool. Cool. So if you have a Yenova tablet, I don't know how you would do it. I don't think you can use the Wacom kind of settings with a Yenova tablet. But you know, maybe there is some sort of a program in there that basically allows you to map certain keystrokes to a button on that tablet's pen. So I don't know. I personally really like Wacom tablets. I've used them forever. I know there's a few, there's a bit of competition out there now, and if they're cheaper, that's fine. But if they're the same price, I don't know why anybody would use anything but a Wacom tablet. They're so good. They have great drivers. They update them all the time. And I've been using the same Wacom tablet for years, and I like it a lot. A lot of ZBrush artists use Cintiqs as well, but I prefer using a tablet personally. It's just a personal preference. Just because I can do it. I can kind of disassociate the screen from the tablet. I don't have to be drawing actually on the geometry itself. All right, Etienne, goodbye. We'll talk to you. Hopefully we'll see you next time. And good. So if you guys have questions, last minute questions, this would be a good time to ask them. Here I'm just basically bringing out some of these details. And so, you know, usually these details come out on their own. I think I've kind of gone in here and smoothed this a few times, so so the details are lost. I'm just kind of bringing them back out. And I'm just using the good old standard Damien brush, one of my favorite brushes in ZBrush. I remember the first presentation I saw in ZBrush, it wasn't in ZBrush before. When I had ZBrush, the Damien standard brush wasn't in there. And when I first saw it, I'm like, wow, this is the best brush ever. What is it? And then they said what it was. And then I think it was like maybe one version after it was in ZBrush already, which is great. All right. Okay. This area here is looking pretty good. And again, I can use, I don't really have a pattern on the back, but you know, this method that I've been using, you don't have to just use it once. You can use it after the fact too. So here I'm going to do the same trick, but I'm going to do it differently. So I'm going to go back to that paintbrush. And you guys are going to be, it's going to be pretty nuts. So I'm just going to go back to the paintbrush. Okay, I'm going to turn RGB off, and I'm going to turn Z-add or Z-sub on. Let's turn Z-sub on. And I'm going to be choosing another one of those patterns, like let's say this one. And I'm going to see if I can put a pattern here in the back. Let's see, I've got Z-add on, Z-sub on, intensity is there. I don't know why this is not coming up. Maybe I should put a different pattern on, maybe this one. Now let's leave RGB on so we can see what's going on. What is going on here? RGB's on, that's there, stroke. Texture. Oh, I don't have polypaint on. That's probably why. All right. Like, okay, so now I can see this kind of pattern coming in. But if I have Z sub on, it should be actually indenting the model. I don't know why it's not. Turn the RGB off. Oh, that's probably because I have used alpha off somewhere. Where is that? Is it under stroke? Or is it under brush? Nope. It should be either under stroke or under texture. Like a million textures in here. Let's see now. Let me see here. It actually should tell me where it would be. RGB channel. So maybe it's under color or draw. It's probably under draw. This is why I like to make my own UI, is because I don't want to be fishing through menus to find stuff. I usually want to bring them up to kind of the interface, so I don't have to look for them. But modifiers, is it here? No. Maybe under transform, XYZ. No, not there either. Should either be under stroke or brush. I don't know why I'm not finding it. Graphics, edit. It's not under texture. Is it under tool? No. Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking for. There is something. There one of these buttons that says use the alpha. Maybe this is it. Material channel. No. Yeah, I don't know where it is. All right, doesn't matter. But basically, it will allow me to basically draw out this as geometry, but it's not going to work. So I'm just going to not do it. I'll figure it out for next time. But yeah, there was a button here. I mean, is it under alpha? Is it where it is? And I totally modify. No. All right, doesn't matter. I'm just going to go back to sculpting. And if I figure it out by next time, I'll let you guys know. Here I got you all excited and didn't figure out how to do it. All right. I think we're getting close to going about 8 minutes over. I'll go for another 10 minutes or so, and then we'll call it a night. But if you guys have any questions, ask away. I'm going to spend a minute here and, again, just stop for a minute and think about where that thing is that I want. It's definitely not under color. It's under draw. RGB, mRGB, Z add, Z sub, Z cut. Huh. I guess, yeah, here we go. Here's how I do it. I just thought of another way of doing the same thing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go to the standard brush. So standard, and I'm going to go ahead and find whatever alpha it is that I want to use. So let's say I'm going to use, one of these guys right here. I'm going to use this one. So what I can go is go to texture here, say make alpha. So now I've got that as an alpha, turn texture on, leave texture on, and go to drag dot, and now I'm basically doing that on top. This is what I want it to do. So this would be the way to do it. So if I want to add some geometry here to the back, this would be the way to do it. And I can also do the drag rectangle for the same thing. So now I'm basically doing that same thing I was doing with the texture, but I'm actually doing it with this alpha. And so now I've basically just added geometry to this back part. So how cool is that? See, it's the same thing every time. If I'm getting kind of frustrated with something, I just need to, instead of trying 100 different things, I just need to stop for a second, and the solution will present itself. All right, so now I've got these cool patterns in the back, and I can do that with all these different patterns. So I can do that with the helmets as well. So here, if I choose, I'm going to choose this one here, and I'm going to go ahead and say make alpha. And what the alpha will do is it will change it to kind of a grayscale image. And then I can just use drag rectangle, and now I'm getting all these really interesting patterns. And if I want to invert it, I want it to go the other way, I can always go to alpha and inverse it, and now I have a whole other thing happening. The same idea. So I don't know if this is working for this specific model, but I think you guys get the idea. All right, so let's go back to Damien Standard. Now that I've got this new stuff to work with, I can kind of start adding that into my composition. Right. Let's work on the shoes. Shoes are looking okay. So here, I'm actually working on a pretty high subdivision level, so I'm going to drop down to maybe about level 3. And I can basically get the underpinnings of what the shoe is going to look like. So let's say it kind of is like this. And there's kind of a part here in the toes. And there's a split area over here. Let's kind of do a split toe design. So I'm actually going to merge this into one piece like that. That looks better. So here I'm basically doing shoe design, but using kind of the background that I had, and I'm just going to do this right here. And let's add a bit of a soul to it. So I'm going to go ahead and use the layer brush. Where are you? Layer brush, 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 brush. Here we go. Add this, add that, and add that. Okay, so that's basically adding a kind of a cool little area on the bottom. And if I want these to be flat, I can always, let me do this over here too. Here we go. That's looking pretty cool. Okay, and if I want this to be flat, I can always just use the clip curve, flatten it out. And now I've got an interesting sole here, and let's go to Deming Standard and just start kind of bringing out some of these details. I'm going to actually not autosave it at this point in time. Hopefully I won't get a crash. But you can see here, I've been working this entire time. I'm going to jinx it, but I've been working this entire time and working with millions of polygons, working with a lot of detail, and I'm not getting any issues with it. Yeah, when I work on-site, when I go to a customer location, the memory that they have on their machines, you know, most of the time they have 32 gigs, and when I use ZBrush on that, it's fine. It's just when I need to use ZBrush and other programs, specifically Photoshop, and big, you know, really kind of, you know, have a lot of images loaded, that's when the RAM kicks in. And ZBrush is not video card dependent either, which is kind of a good thing. So you don't need to get like a really super duper video card. Not that you can, there's so much in demand right now. I want to upgrade to a 3090 at some point, but they're really difficult to come by. And I can wait for a while longer. I don't need to get that right now. Right, so the shoes are coming along nicely. I'm going to use the move brush here to just add a little bit of dimension this way. There we go. All right. All right. So Jasper is asking, ZModeler non-symmetrical operation canceled. I don't know what you're. Can you elaborate on that, Jasper? Jaspreet, I don't understand what you're saying. You can just elaborate on that a little bit more. It'll help me understand what you're asking and hopefully answer it for you. All right, here we go. And maybe these are going to be kind of like boots. Right, so I'm just kind of fleshing these out. And again, I'm working on subdivision level 3 here, but I can always bump it up to the higher subdivision levels and add a little bit more detail if I need to. But you always want to work, you know, on primary shapes, secondary shapes, and tertiary shapes. So let's just start, you know, just like kind of keep it here for now while we're defining certain parts. Okay, so this whole area over here needs a lot of work. So let's just kind of do some work here. But your model is not symmetrical. Oh, okay. Yeah, so just turn symmetry off. So what you need to do is just go to stroke. Go to transform, and under activate symmetry, just turn this off. Right? So just turn symmetry off. Or you can hit the X key. If you don't have X key mapped to something else, the X key works as well. So you can do it that way as well. Does that answer your question? Yeah, because if symmetry is on, and it doesn't find a, you know, like if I move this model over Um, I'll just do this real quick. If I have this model over here, let's say, right, and I move the pivot, now the center of the world is over here, like that, right? And if I turn symmetry on, right, so now if I'm going to work symmetrically, there's stuff over on the right side, but there's nothing on the left side. So if I have ZModeler on, it's going to complain and say that it's not symmetrical, right? So for ZModeler to work symmetrically, it needs to make sure that symmetry is available on both sides. Does that make sense? So what you need to do in that case is, you can do one of two things. You can either resymmetrize your model by going into geometry here and doing under modify topology, doing a mirror and weld. So that will make sure that the model is symmetric on both sides. So that's one way of doing it, and another way of doing it is to turn symmetry off and do it on one side and then do it on the other side. Do I have any, I share everything. I don't have any hidden tips or tricks. I basically am an open book. I teach, so I like to educate people, and I think if you share what you know, it really helps bring up everybody. So, I like to always be sharing everything. The problem is I know a lot of things through experience, so there's so much to share and so little time. The thing about ZBrush is it's got so many different features. Like, people think it's, oh, this is hidden, but it's really not hidden. It's just there's so much to know that the only way you can get to know it is to spend time working on it and get experience. So I've been using ZBrush for a very long time. But people, I've got students that basically in a semester, in 13 weeks, they go from not knowing anything in ZBrush to doing some amazing work. So it doesn't take long to kind of get the basics down. But over time, you watch things like this, watch them after the fact, ask questions, and if you spend enough time, you'll know a lot of really cool things about it. Hopefully that answers your question. All right, this is looking pretty good. Here, let me turn the floor off. All right, so now I'm at the higher subdivision level, and this is coming along pretty nicely. And in a very little bit of time here, right? I've gone from just having a generic kind of character to having pretty much a lot of a spacesuit done, and some of it is already painted too. Like, if I bring the poly paint back on, you can see that the poly paint that I did before is really working really well. I might need to do a little bit of detail work on here, maybe put some logos and whatnot, but in a very short period of time, you can get something really compelling and and it's fun. So anyway, I think I'm going to stop here, unless you have some last minute questions you want to ask. I think we're about 20 minutes over time, and I apologize again for not being on last week. I think Pixologic had a conflict and I had to reschedule. But I'll be doing 3 this month. So I have today and the 15th and 7 or 2 weeks after that. So I've got 3 that I'm doing in October. So please tune in live, and if you can't, you can always watch them after the fact. It's always fun to do these things. It's always fun to spend time with you guys. I wish I could see who you were. Maybe one day this chat window will have like little zoom windows of who you are, and we'll have a map of where you are in the world, and it's, I think, a good way to talk to all of you. Thanks again for watching, and hopefully we will see you again in a couple of weeks.